Welcome to Retail Retold, the stories behind how that store landed in your neighborhood. I'm Chris Ressa, in conversation with the people and stories shaping retail and real estate. Brought to you by DLC. Welcome to Retail Retold. Today I'm joined by Ethan Chernofsky, the head of marketing at Placer.ai. Ethan, welcome to the show.
Chris, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Yes. So Ethan, for those who don't know, I know everybody does know you, but for those who don't know you, can you talk a little bit about who you are?
Sure. I run marketing at Placer. I've been running marketing here for the last 7+ years. And we are a location analytics company. It means people vote with their feet. We show you how they vote across the United States.
Amazing. So that's going to lead us into what we're talking about today, which are what's going on with footfall and traffic in the United States at retail shopping centers and retailers. What has happened with traffic in 2026?
So I think overall, we're seeing retail traffic is in a really strong place. I don't think that's a huge shock. I think there are a few caveats to this. So one, visits do not mean transactions. There clearly is a correlation there, but I think those correlations have shifted over the last couple of years, and that's continued into this year. And the primary one I'm talking about is consumers are showing a willingness to go to more retailers within a specific category as a part of their ongoing journey. So let's say in grocery. A few years ago, I would go to 2 or 3 grocers a month. Now that might be 4 or 5 grocers. And so visits are up.
Wow, it's that many? Hold on, I'm going to stop you there.
Yes.
It's that many?
Yeah, in some cases, it can be even more. And so there is a willingness to go to many places to get specific things. And that is a huge change in behavior.
So I want to be everything to everyone is tough in today's environment, clearly.
I don't know if I mean this fully, but it's I think the hardest thing to do in retail is try to not have a clearly defined narrower lane. So I think it's easier to be Five Below than it is to be Target. I think having a clear, look, you're getting things cheap here. This is where we're going to win is easier than I'm going to provide value, but some things are going to be a little bit more expensive. It's just harder to do because it's harder to build around that clearly articulated promise. I think right now it's more difficult to be a Kroger's Albertsons than it is to be a Trader Joe's or Aldi. I mean, that doesn't mean that won't change back because we clearly saw being that all-in-one player as a huge advantage just a few years ago. And so this can be cyclical, but right now you're seeing a consumer that is making very intentional decisions about what they want to get and where they're going to get those things.
Got it. So do you think that's like, when you say 4 to 5 different places in a grocery store, over what period? Is that like on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis?
No, let's say a month.
Month.
If you were going to go to, what we're seeing almost across the board is that visit durations are declining, but visits are going up, and that visits within category are going up. And so that gives us this very powerful indication that, and we hear it validated from the, especially in the grocery space, from the retailers themselves, that people are going to more places, and that the battle has shifted from win the visit, because in that immediate post-pandemic period, if I won the visit, I'm getting a huge basket, to now, how do I get people to add more items into that shopping cart? I want to win the share of list. And, to quote someone who I was on a panel with earlier this year, it's not the dollar amount, because inflation has solved that to a large extent over the last bit. Like, that's not where they're focusing on strategy-wise. It's the number of items, because that's what's going to lead to a healthier dollaring.
Got it. So to take a step back, visit duration gone down.
Yep.
By how much generally?
Not a huge percentage, but it's enough, especially when you think about the mean, like the average of a visit duration. Okay. Like a couple of minutes can be a significant difference.
Fair enough. So duration has come down, but number of visits has gone up, and population increase hasn't happened by amount that you would think would determine that. So people are coming out to the store more is the takeaway.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like, I mean, I don't want to bury like the lead in this because I do think it's important, but there is a clear and obvious, and I think in many ways still underappreciated degree to which consumers want to go to stores. It doesn't mean they're not going to use online. It doesn't mean digital doesn't matter. It just means the store clearly does. And physical shopping centers, those shopping spaces matter now, in my opinion, more than they did a few years ago. Because if you think like 10 years ago, our expectation of a physical shopping space was it will fulfill the need. I will go there. I will get the thing we want. Did it? Great. We won. Now we're seeing the physical shopping center. The rules are changing, but the importance hasn't changed. And I think that is maybe the most important thing we need to be talking about right now in the retail space, because as you've talked about, and I think you've led the charge on having this conversation, there's not enough space and lots of people are expanding. So that creates a temporary period or maybe a long-term period where things are very good for the retail real estate side. But the real long-term question is, how do we make spaces more future-proof? How do we make spaces more impactful? How do we utilize them to their fullest potential so that if that shifts back and all of a sudden there is more space now to be had, the physical retail space is still in a very strong overall situation.
Yeah, I think there's no doubt that, to me, that in 10 years, the physical store will be more valuable to both retailers and consumers than it is today. And I think it's pretty valuable to both today. One of the things that I talk about that doesn't get enough love, but I think is powerful, is most retailers profit more by selling the product in the store, and most consumers will get more value from buying a product in the store. And so I think that there's this thing that it's better for the retailer to sell it in the store, and it is better for the consumer to buy it in the store, right? I'll use grocery as an example. It costs more dollars to get groceries delivered to your house, and the grocer, not all, but most, make more money by having you go to the store. So wait a second. Now we have a double this convergence where the store makes more money and the consumer spends less money. That's a pretty good, compelling reason for a physical store, in my opinion, that doesn't get discussed enough, which is we could talk about, the experience and getting out of your house and all these fun things. But at the end of the day, if the store is a place where a retailer can make more profit and the consumer can get it at a lower price, that to me is super compelling, especially in a world where you have 60, whatever the number is, percent of Americans who are paycheck to paycheck, whatever that stat is that gets quoted. There's a stat that gets quoted all the time. At the end of the day, I think online's not going anywhere. And I think they help each other, as, online helps physical and physical helps online. Sure. My point, though, is a little different, which is I think that, over time, we haven't been able to get the profit and or for the merchant and the price down for the consumer, because they're paying for shipping, they might be paying for returns, and now this is adding significantly to the basket value online. And so the thing that's interesting is we solved for this centuries ago, and it's called a physical store. And I think that's the one piece. I'm all in and bought in on all the reasons for a store, whether that's, the experience, community, taction, being able to touch the product, discovery, all that. But I think we often miss that, wait a second, this is a place to profit for the retailer, and it's a place for value for the consumer.
I agree with you completely. I'll add to that. We talked about this for a long time as a win-win-win, and I would add a fourth group. So you talked about the retailer, you talked about the consumer, agreed. I think the landlord being part of that is also really significant. And I think the other player is the product company itself. So one of the things that is so significant about the store is the mentality we're in when we're shopping. If you've ever bought groceries online, it's not like an incredible discovery experience. It's, I need apples, I need cucumbers, I need Frosted Flakes, I'm going online to get it. You're not walking the aisles digitally and trying to think, ooh, what might I make this week? It's just a different experience, and we have to accept that it's different. And the opportunity there for the retailer, by the way, from a retail media perspective, but also for the retailer from a, hey, I can get new products in front of you, and that empowers my position even further from a margins perspective. That's a big piece of this. So I'm with you. I don't think it gets discussed enough how much better it is. But I think even in the places, so that's groceries almost the best example of what you're saying. Let's take
it is. It is for sure.
Let's take the worst though. Let's take clothing, apparel, right? I think apparel is where you have the most online penetration. And I don't have a number in front of me, so I apologize if I'm getting this wrong, but a significant online penetration. If I go to buy a shirt and it fits well, and I have a good experience with the person at the store, and then I continue buying online, that purchase still demanded a great in-store experience, even if more things can happen online later, right? The process of me ordering 6 different sizes and then sending 5 of them back, that is terrible for the retailer. It's a bad experience for me. It's annoying. And it's bad for the people who are selling the product. So even there, the store is necessary, even just because the role of it is changing. It's not where I'm going to consume everything. It doesn't mean it's not absolutely necessary to driving those conversions over time.
Sure. Look, a lot of apparel companies are opening up new stores. So I think that they're showing, they're voting with their feet, as you would say, or voting with their dollar and opening up stores. So what else is going on in traffic? So I think you've given some good insights, right? Durations down, visits up. Overall, U.S. traffic is strong. Mm-hmm. Those are some good insights. Anything else we haven't discussed that's what's going on in traffic?
I'll give you something that's going to get us even further down the point we're already making, but we're seeing mall visits up. We're seeing mall duration strong. And the interesting thing is we're seeing it when we break down cohorts, like into using different data sets like spatial AI, and others. We see that it's a younger audience that is spending significant amounts of time at malls. Now, clearly this is aggregate data, so it's directional, but that is a powerful statement from a Gen Z that we were told for a very long time. They are never going to care about stores. They're going to be online only in their phones, and they will never go to a store. Yet they're coming to these spaces because it's a place to gather. It's a place to hang out. It's a place to be with other people. And the shopping is part of the experience. And I think that is a huge kind of signal of how massively important placemaking is. And obviously there are people who've been focusing on this forever, but there's lots of people who kind of shunted it to the side. It wasn't a core priority. And there are obviously places where, look, in a grocery anchored center, is it as significant as it is in an indoor mall? Probably not. But the concept of creating spaces where people want to spend time and keep on spending more and more time, it might be the bread and butter of retail real estate, but you are going to see more and more of those who invest in that experience outpace the rest of the pack.
So let's touch on that, because I think product type matters. You touched on it lightly, which is like maybe not as much in a grocery anchored center as an enclosed mall. But there are certain products where I think it's in the property's best interest to drive dwell time. And then there's other, I've talked to a retailer before where they've told me our goal is to get the consumer in and out as quickly and humanly as possible. We want to make this a frictionless experience. We want them in and out because they want to be in and out, right? There was a time, and I don't know if you can still do it, where Target, like, they would put the product in my trunk. And I'm not sure if you can still do that, right? You could drive up and you could do the thing on your phone, and it was seamless. It was flawless, right? We have drive-thrus in America, right? We want to get in and out, right? Drive-thrus, there's a proliferation of drive-thrus. So I think there's right? And at a drive-thru, I could tell you, the municipality, the consumer, heck, in a drive-thru, a lot of the fast food restaurants of the world, they time and, score their team on how fast they get someone from when they order to getting the food into their car and out of the queue. Municipalities don't want the traffic buildup. Consumers want to be in and out as quickly as possible. So I do think like there's this point of placemaking at certain types of retail properties for certain types of retailers. And then there's this other piece of what I'll call convenience where the property shouldn't be trying to increase dwell time. They should be trying to decrease it, increase visits, and decrease dwell time.
The property needs to be thinking about optionality. So I'll give you an example. Maybe the most extreme example of I want in and I want out is drive-through at a restaurant, right?
Yes.
So I don't know, Chris, the family needs dinner. Nobody's had time to prepare. You're going to run out and get it. You better get there and get home as quickly as possible before everyone loses their minds. Yes. Check. Get in and get out. One of our crazy data point that we saw at one stage when we were looking at numbers was at one stage, I think it was during like the Popeyes crush where people were like obsessed. Remember the chicken wars and everyone was obsessed.
You don't even, I know it more than most for all the wrong reasons, but yeah, I know it well. There's a picture of me and the CEO, Adam Ifshin, actually eating that Popeyes chicken sandwich at a Popeyes. I can send it to you. It's pretty good. We did a photo op there.
You want something great? You were not the only one. You know what we were seeing people do? We were seeing visit durations didn't make sense to us at certain locations. We're like, this doesn't make sense. We dug in, we saw that in a place that had no space to sit, it was just drive-through only, people were getting their food and they were clearly sitting in the parking lot and eating it in their car, right? Now, I'm not saying that that is the horrible thing or a great thing, but if I'm running that center, wouldn't it be awesome if there was like picnic tables there? So then maybe they eat dinner there and, I have an ice cream place that they'll go have dessert. So it's not in every situation you want to drive duration, but you want to make sure that the person who's there who could be there longer and could be spending more time and more dollars in your center has the opportunity. And so it's certainly a case by case basis.
Sure.
But I think the idea of placemaking needs to be seen as a spectrum. In some places, I want to maximize visit duration. In some cases, I want to make that convenience as smooth as possible. But most centers are going to fall somewhere in between where you're going to have some sort of mix.
Got it. Let me ask you, in where you are today, are the retail trends in Israel, do you see them the same as you do in the US?
No, it's totally different. It's like a absolutely different environment. And it's the walkability of cities and towns. It's where these things are, where centers are located. It's very, very different. And so I think any country you go to, like I've lived in multiple countries, and there is a culture around everything from grocery shopping to the way we shop for retail to the way we go to malls. And so it is so different from place to place that I think you can learn a lot. Like I was recently in Dubai, and like their malls are tremendous. And I think there's lessons for things that they do so well there that could be applied to the US. But I have also seen people go to, East Asia and go to Hong Kong or go to Beijing or Tokyo and say, look at what they do retail wise here. We must do that in America. And then the concept flops. And so there are cultural cues in every country in terms of how we shop and what we expect from a shopping experience. And very often it's like an evolutionary perspective of like, all right, we have suburbs in the US that are further away than you might have in other places. And so it informs the way we shop, what we look to get. Even things like, the seasonality of when you're going to go to certain things, I think can have a huge impact.
So, okay. So this one you're not prepared for. So let's see if we can do it. We're sitting here in late July. Typically this is back to school. Are there any traditional traffic trends that happen for the back to school shopping world in the US?
Yeah, it's usually the Targets and Walmarts of the world see a huge jump. We see the off prices see a huge jump. IKEA sees a peak that the rest of the home improvement sector doesn't, because that's where you're going to buy the things for your kids who are heading off to college. Staples, Office Depot, all these players usually see their seasonal peak right now. I think the interesting thing is there are other players who are involved in the back to school period. So let's call it, August, early September, that are interesting outliers that I think are especially exciting to watch this year. And I think this year, Starbucks is a big one to watch. It's that PSL, pumpkin spice latte launch, usually comes at the end of August, right? That's going to be an interesting one, especially considering the trajectory that company's been on and the excitement they're generating with their back to Starbucks. I think the other one to watch is the wider movie theater space. Just the run of blockbusters has been really interesting. And we don't yet have, to look at what the data will look like once we have the full Odyssey picture in the mix will be fascinating. I mean, we had Spider-Man, we have Toy Story, we had all these big movies driving a big season. And so there are a lot of players that you expect to do well during these periods. What I think is the most fascinating is the ones that you didn't necessarily see it coming for. Like, I don't know, Adidas did a great job of taking advantage of the World Cup, right? Chipotle also did, that wasn't necessarily one I had expected as much. Whereas one I was more looking for. And so I think seeing those that are able to take advantage of waves that might not be designed for them is always really interesting.
Interesting. The pumpkin spice latte, you guys have done a lot of data analysis on the PSL, on the pumpkin spice latte. And I think the one that really shocked me is it doesn't start in like September, October. It starts like in August, right?
Yeah, you want the best part about this? I'll tell you a recent one that we haven't. I don't know if we talked about this on any of our kind of speaking things yet. I find it Black Friday visits, take Starbucks. Black Friday, free Red Cup Day. It's the company's seasonal peak and the days that pop within that peak. Awesome, super cool. I get really excited when you see people play the game and try to manufacture engagement when there shouldn't be during like a seasonal low. So Starbucks and the PSL, they keep on moving it earlier and earlier. Why? Because their best season is fall and winter. So they're trying to get you into that mindset as fast as they can. There was one really interesting. We were looking at Dairy Queen. We were looking at Dairy Queen on National Ice Cream Day. And they always have this big peak. Great. Awesome. Bravo, Dairy Queen. But when you look at the Dairy Queen data, you see this other big peak. Doesn't make sense. And it's in March. Right? Now, very importantly, ice cream consumption is almost directly tied to how hot it is outside. Like every degree up you go, I think ice cream consumption pops a couple of percentage points. Yeah, so you see this March peak and it doesn't really make sense, except that's free scoop day at Dairy Queen. Now, they didn't do it in January and February because no one wants ice cream in January. They do it in March. It's right before the season, but it's still early enough that it's not going to be, it's something I want to do to generate the excitement and activity during a lower period. And I think what I love about that is you have really smart people at these retailers and dining chains who are saying, here's my normal seasonality. What games can I play? What can I do to manufacture engagement and interest, visits when they might not otherwise come? And I think when you see it happen successfully, and Starbucks is the gold standard, you look at it and you're like, retailers, dining brands have a lot more control than we sometimes give the space credit for. We talk a lot about headwinds, a lot about tailwinds, and those things are clearly real and they can have a significant impact. But great retailers, great dining brands are very often able to come up with ways to manipulate the seasonality and push their valleys a little bit higher and maximize their peaks.
Awesome. That's what great operators do. Yeah, that's really interesting. I guess, as we get to the end here, are there any other, that Dairy Queen example was fascinating. Are there any other, what I would call, you had some interesting terminology you said, but I would just call it, are there any like groups out there with interesting traffic stories that the world might not be thinking about, right? You said you didn't expect Chipotle to take advantage of the World Cup in the way it did. You didn't understand why Dairy Queen in March had a big pop, but it's free scoop day. Anyone else out there, this year or in most years, I guess, taking advantage and having an interesting traffic story?
I'll give you an interesting traffic story that goes the other way, but I think it's positive, right? So Home Depot, this is one of my big takeaways from Q2. Home Depot and Lowe's had this immediate post-pandemic surge. There was the pull forward of demand, visits then drop over the next couple of years, right? In 2025, you see visits looking good. You're like, oh man, here comes the pop. And then you have Liberation Day with with kind of tariff concerns and the like, and visits immediately tip after that early April period. So you have a sector that needs a comeback, right as it's entering the height of its seasonal peak, have something happen that hurts traffic. Okay. We look into, as we're ending 2025 and heading into 2026, same pattern emerges. Home Depot, Lowe's, the wider home improvement space looks ready to burst. Or pop, excuse me, burst makes it sound bad. Again, things are going good. Here it's gas prices. All of a sudden you have this significant economic headwind and the visits start to fizzle again, and they're like flirting with the year before. They're not quite at the year before. Sometimes they're looking good. And I think the fascinating thing is here, you look at a sector where you're like, I don't think you're doing anything wrong. And in fact, I think you're doing a lot of things right. And I think the recovery is coming and it's right around the corner, but there are things working in your favor that are coming just at the wrong moment, right? Just as that seasonal peak is hitting. So this is one where it's like, it's not working as well as you want, but I don't really ding you for it, because I think that every other indicator tells me that it's going to come back as soon as things settle off just a little bit.
Okay. All right. Well, Ethan, this has been fantastic. Anything else from a traffic front that we should talk about that we haven't?
Yeah, let's talk about one last one. We'll do it quickly. Let's talk about the comebacks, right? Let's talk about Starbucks. Let's talk about Target. Let's talk about the brands that a year or two ago, way too many retail dining pundits were dumping on, that are now starting to see recoveries. Knocking them hard. And to see the comebacks, it is a really important reminder that great retail chains with a strong brand are very hard to kill. And they are cats, they have multiple lives, and they are usually run by really smart people. And I think giving them time, they're going to find their way forward. So an important one as we're looking at other chains over the next couple of years that run into a little bit of a not ideal period. It's good to believe in the big players. Yeah, exactly.
For sure. Yeah. The comeback stories of Target and Starbucks are great, and they're iconic US brands and they're doing well, and I think it's a good story. And any predictions on traffic for holiday as we're here?
I mean, I think it's going to be strong. I think it's going to surpass last year, because it does feel like we're heading into this positive wave in visits. But we haven't done our breakdowns yet, so I don't have anything metric-based for you.
Fair enough. All right. Well, Ethan, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Where can people find you?
You can find me at Ethan@Placer.ai. If you want to shoot me an email, you can come to find out more about Placer. Placer.ai. You can find me on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Ethan.
Thank you, Chris, for having me. It was always a joy.
Appreciate you watching. Hit subscribe. See you in the next one.